Good morning. On Monday, we're going to celebrate Memorial Day. That was originally called Decoration Day in 1868 to honor the servicemen of the Civil War. Sadly, we continued to have wars since then, and we've lost hundreds of thousands of veterans. Decoration Day somehow wasn't quite fitting as a description to honor our veterans. So in 1971, Congress changed the name of the holiday to Memorial Day. In 1967, I was a senior in high school, and the draft was in effect because of the Vietnam War, and my draft number was quite low, meaning that my chances of seeing military duty were pretty high. And now it's not that I wanted to get out of serving in the military. I did because my father and my brother were in the military. So I decided maybe I should enlist in the Navy instead. My father had served in World War II in Germany. My brother served in the Coast Guard during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I thought, I'm going to serve my country as well, and I decided to join the Navy. Being a child of the 60s, I was aware of all the protests of the Vietnam War. And I, too, had a little trouble understanding the validity of this war. I mean, nobody attacked us like Pearl Harbor or 9/11. Nobody was running around screaming death to all Americans. So I had a little trouble with this, but I still wanted to serve my country. So listening in the Navy, my friends had cautioned me that, you could be assigned to a PBR in Vietnam. Well, what's a PBR? Well, first you have to understand military logic. There is none. So PBR stands for Patrol Boat River. Any normal person would say, well, that's a river patrol boat, but we kind of had things backwards. That was extremely dangerous duty because the enemy snipers would love to pick off people on these patrol boats. So dangerous, a lot of the officers who had the insignia on their collars would paint them black so it wouldn't reflect sunlight and catch attention. So I'm thinking, well, I don't want to be on a PBR, so I'm going to sign up for aircraft maintenance instead. I figured the worst case is I'll be on an aircraft carrier miles off the coast. So 2 days after graduating high school, I was off to Navy boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois. That ship has sailed. I was very lucky. I was stationed in Pensacola, Florida, assigned to a pilot training squadron where they would train the pilots to perform aircraft carrier landings and operate aircraft guns. That's the two-seater Navy T-2B Buckeye, the training plane. Our squadron shared its hangar with the Blue Angels, which at that time were flying F-4 Phantoms. For those of you that don't know, the Blue Angels is the Navy's precision flying team. They perform air shows all over the country. In fact, they were just up in Pocono Downs at the air show up there. Maybe some of you saw them. So we would watch them practice right in front of our hangar over the airfield, and they often went supersonic, and you get that sound barrier boom. So it was pretty exciting. So they flew those planes from 1969 to 1974, and they had just transitioned to the F-4 Phantoms when I got to the base. And one day I was assigned with their crew to help fit these new Phantoms with the smoke generators, where they billow the red, white, and blue smoke at the air shows. So that was pretty neat. So for the first year and a half, I was assigned to the maintenance crew that would fly out on a cargo ship to the aircraft carrier that was being used to teach these pilots how to land on the carrier. And at the time, we were using the USS Lexington. That was the carrier normally used for this. Needless to say, landings were less than stellar. And changing brakes and tires was pretty common, along with the cylinders from collapsed landing gear. If you can imagine trying to land on a postage stamp that's also moving and rolling at the same time, it's pretty difficult. One pilot described a carrier landing as a controlled crash. But apparently I had shown some above average mechanical skills, and I was assigned to the intermediate maintenance division on the base. This division would repair the parts that were taken off the aircraft by the squadron. We'd rebuild brakes, repack cylinders, that kind of thing. So after 3 years in Pensacola, I was assigned to an early warning squadron, VAW 125, stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. These planes have that big round radar disc on the top, and they fly out ahead of the ship to extend the ship's radar and pick up any enemy aircraft. All U.S. aircraft have what we call a transponder that sends out a signal identifying that aircraft. So in the back of this plane, there are 3 radar screens with 3 guys watching these radar screens, watching the blips. And if they would see an aircraft, it would show up as either an F or an H, depending on what signal the transponder was. F for friendly, H for hostile. So if they saw an H, they'd radio back to the ship. We'd launch a flight of intercepting aircraft, and then they would see those aircraft on the screen as an F. So you see an F and an H on the radar screen. They'd take an electronic pen from the F, from the friendly, and draw a line to the H, and in the cockpit of the F would give range, speed, and distance to intercept. Now, this was in 1970. So I can only imagine what technology we have today. So the aircraft carrier, we were assigned to aircraft carrier USS John F. Kennedy, CVA 67, which at the time was the newest and largest conventionally powered warship. Conventionally powered meant steam turbine. At the time, the only nuclear-powered carrier was the USS Enterprise, CVA 65. But today, almost all of our carriers are nuclear-powered. The ship set sail on September 14th, 1970 for a shakedown cruise to the Bahamas. I'm thinking, wow. So a shakedown it was a new ship, so we wanted to make sure everything was working, elevators and arresting gear and catapults and all the systems on the ship. So that was what's called a shakedown cruise. So I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be in the Bahamas. This is going to be great. It's a straight shot down there, and all of a sudden the ship makes a real hard turn to port. That's left. And for me to try and figure this out was difficult. So here's how you do it. Port and left are 4 letters. The corresponding color for port is red. It's not 4, but it's a short word. So port, left, red, short words. Right and starboard are longer words, and the corresponding color is green, which is a longer word than red. So left is short, right is long. And that's how I remembered it. So it was announced that we had been ordered to the Mediterranean Sea at once. We later found out there had been several commercial plane hijackings by Palestinian terrorists, and some of those planes were grounded in Lebanon. So we patrolled the coast of Lebanon for assistance if needed, and we were launching aircraft day and night. And at 20 years old, this was pretty neat. It was very exciting, and for a very short time, I was directing aircraft on the flight deck as they came up from the elevators on the hangar deck, or if they were on the deck, and I would direct them to just behind the blast deflector on the number 2 forward catapult. Blast deflector, big steel plate that comes up out of the deck after the plane is attached to the catapult, because they're going to go to full power, and that exhaust wants to be deflected up instead of blowing everybody off the deck behind them. So, on the flight deck, you were either looking that you didn't get sucked into a jet intake or you didn't get blown off your feet from the exhaust of another aircraft. Now, the A-7 Corsairs, they had the best engine intakes of any aircraft. They were low and under the fuselage, and we would often crawl inside of them to take naps between launches. There it is. It's a nice low fuselage. You could just scoot right in there, take a little nap. It was nice. If you've seen the movie Top Gun or the newer one, Top Gun Maverick, the scenes of aircraft carrier launching is absolutely authentic. It's quite a show. So the crisis was averted, and we stayed on station for a few months, and there was an opening in the ship's intermediate hydraulic maintenance division. And having done this work in Pensacola, I was assigned to that division for the rest of the cruise. We visited many ports and even had Bob Hope on board for a Christmas show. That was pretty nice. Not every young man or woman was this lucky, and 2 people that I knew lost their lives serving in Vietnam. Returning home, there was very little respect given to the servicemen and women, and I found that disturbing. So now older, well, 22, and wiser, I came to realize the true sacrifice our men and women gave to our country and the lack of recognition they deserved. And for this reason, I decided to join the American Legion and be part of the Honor Guard. It is truly an honor to give our fallen servicemen and women the respect and recognition they deserve for their service to our country. It's very gratifying to me to see how much the families of our departed comrades appreciate what we do at a graveside service. After today's service, Fullerton Legion Post 367 will perform 3 rifle volleys and the sounding of taps. This is the highest honor afforded to departed veterans. At a graveside service, we would also fold the flag and read aloud the meaning of the stripes and the stars in the blue field. So as you leave today and enjoy this 3-day weekend, the unofficial start of summer, picnics and pool openings, remember those that sacrificed their lives so that you and I can live in peace and freedom.